Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
My name's Tony Rimas. I've been with XPEL a walloping 13 months now.
How did you get to be part of the XPEL family?
I was a chemistry major in undergrad. Ended up doing anti-cancer research after my grandfather passed. And the professor I was doing research for said, hey, go see my buddy. He's the CFO of a automotive tool and stamping company called Duffy Tool and Stamping. They got originally, I think it ultimately got acquired by Delphi. And then next thing you know, I learned this wonderful program called PowerPoint. With the sales engineers building their PowerPoints. And then by the time I was in my fifth year in college, which I didn't want to leave, I was skipping class and going and pitching the OEMs. That's how I got into the car business. And come full circle, I met Ryan all the way back in like 2009. But then really reconnected with him in 2014, 15. I think that was when they were going through their 3M lawsuits and stuff like that. I remember we were getting sued in a lighting company. We had a lighting company called General LED, and we were getting sued by GE at the time. And I remember my old boss, Red McCombs, who passed last year. He had a newspaper sitting on my desk, San Antonio Express News. And he had it like circled that like, XPEL was being sued by 3M. He's like, don't you know this kid? And I'm like, well, we've met a couple of times. He goes, get over there and figure out why he's getting sued and see if you guys can help each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we were a lighting company, Mike, that was selling LEDs for the internal channel letters. And so we had won, some things like Wells Fargo, and then all of a sudden the Starbucks national contract. Well, big companies like to hold the medium-sized small guy down with patent lawsuits and stuff. All that got solved for, but that's how I reconnected with Ryan. Really, ultimately, a year and a half ago, I was kind of retired. I worked in I kind of went from the dealership space, started investing in retail technology. I got talked into by private equity to leave my own firm and sell out of it, and actually lead a company called Repairify out of Dallas that did diagnostic and calibration support for collision shops. So, I really reconnected because I had invested before the private equity stand. I had invested in Rivian, and I started to notice, like I was getting these notices like, hey, get another Rivian and you can get XPEL on it. Next thing you know, I'm seeing XPEL there, and then I'm driving around town and I'm seeing, XPEL on warehouses on I-35. And so I reached out to Ryan and I said, listen, like I got to find something else to do. I can either, partner up with some people, buy a dealership. Know that world you left. I actually really liked it a lot. Basically just reached out to Ryan and said, what are you guys doing? Because, I need something to do. And then he immediately put me with Matt Moreau.
Yep. So you came here 13 months ago?
Yes.
And since week one to now, take me through that progress of 13 months.
Yeah. So the first month or so, I think they were trying to figure out where I could be most helpful, really. Mm-hmm. And so I worked specifically with Matt, trying to set up our kind of global management structure to where we could actually address a lot of the high growth we're seeing in the international markets. And, he basically said, hey, listen, like I need to understand visually, because, there's sometimes communication barrier there. And also there's also a level of intensity with Matt where he's just like, well, which way do we want to do this? And I'm like, well, let's like talk it out how we want this to work. Because if we have someone that's in a time zone like Asia Pacific, would we really want that person calling back over here, getting approvals for things, and they're wasting probably 2 or 3 days a week waiting for us to get back to that person? And so the key was to really take some of the people they identified, give them the autonomy to run those regions of the world. And we obviously know we've moved Chris West into the Asia Pacific market. He has done extremely well. Abhishek Joshi, he has done equally as well in his own way. They both have very different styles. One is absolutely a cowboy, as we call him, and he's all cowboy, no horse type thing. I love him to death. And then equally with Abhishek has, very planned out agendas of what he's going to execute on and why. And it's really working well. Those guys are really almost kind of like calling the shots for their regions of the world. From there, we started to realize that not only could I, help with the structuring of things and help with connections in those regions of the world, we started to take a look in our own backyard, in the domestic market, where, 50% of our sales come from, right? And you're looking at the growth of our business and the high growth of what I would consider the wholesale or the sublet business that has to do with dealerships. And what I was really blown away by was the fact of that XPEL has had so much success in the retail aftermarket. And if you get to know me more and more, like, I'll always wear my weakness on my t-shirt. Like, me going in and speaking to an independent shop, because like Chris Hardy, Chris West, Eric Cummins, they've taken me into independent shops. And to tell you the truth, it took me about 6 months to get comfortable with that type of entrepreneur. Because I was, you take me into a dealership, I mean, I know exactly where to walk. I know exactly who to talk to. I know exactly, what to say to everyone from the dealer principal all the way down to a diesel tech. So just trying to like better understand the experience from a consumer point of view of how different it was.
But you've bringing a different dynamic to this XPEL world. What's been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is making sure that I remain focused on the bigger goal. Today we are $500 million run rate. And I think the board, our 1,200 teammates, Ryan, Barry, really are, looking to me and others to think about how do we go from 500 million to 5 billion, whether it's PPF, window tint, or ceramic coatings. It's going to be really difficult to stay doing just those things to get to 5 billion. We'll eventually get there.
5 billion is the goal?
5 billion and beyond, right?
Well, you're at 500 million.
Correct.
So you have a 10x. You want to 10x that. Absolutely. That's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's a big dream.
It's a dream, but done it before. It takes obviously really, really good execution, but also making sure you got the right strategy, right? And when I took this job at XPEL, when they offered it to me, I was super excited, but I did call a lot of people that I knew in the industry. And, there were 2 points of feedback that really hit me. One was a mentor of mine here locally that a lot of people know. And he gave me a lot of flack. He gave me the whole 6 months in younger vehicle, new cars only. He goes, you're a software guy, investor, like, where's your recurring revenue? Where's your repeat customer? That sort of thing. And, of course, I argue back and forth with him, like, well, they come back and it's an ecosystem play, and they can buy Vision and they can buy Marine, and what if they don't have a boat? And then we argue about it. Anyway, what the other phone call I made was to what I considered like a competitor, but we didn't even compete at the same level. It was to the founder in Houston of All Pro Reconditioning. I mentioned this, pseudo retirement. I went to dent school and learned how to pull dents and learned how to do, I called him up and I was like, we only do new cars here. And he's like, no, you don't. He goes, we do paint touch up. We do pull dents every single day. We pull film and then we sub back out the replacement of that film. And I'm like, well, how many times are you doing that a day? And of course, he's got this sophisticated software. You go in their offices, it looks like Bloomberg setups. And because these guys are washing, give you an example, just on detail, they wash about 19,000 cars a week.
Wow.
Yeah. They're pretty big. They're in auctions, rental car companies, all that type of stuff. And that's just wash. He kind of hit me between the eyes with that. He was like, you don't understand. Like, I can look in our system here, and I'm not going to pull a dent with, high quality PPF on it. I'm going to pull the PPF. I'm going to fix the dent correctly, let it cure. Then I'm going to sub it out. And we're trying to do it in-house, but we're struggling with it. Now they've become one of our partners, which is awesome. And so those 2 conversations really helped me understand that, like, man, if we can figure out ways to be more relevant to the entire car park, right? Not just those brand new cars and be stuck in this like SAR area. And I'll comment on Chris West for a second. He's in a perfect area because the SAR is huge in China, and it's a thing to actually wrap the entire car.
I was there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right?
I've seen it. I've been with 6 guys, There's 12, 15 guys there. They have misters coming from the ceiling. They have a little girl walking around with a camera, videoing everything all day long for social media. And I go, well, how many full front ends are you guys doing? Because we don't offer that. I go,
full car.
you don't offer a full front end? He goes, no, it's full car, full car, full car. Have you seen the people park around here? Walks down the street. Bumpers are touching each other.
Yeah.
Cars are touching each other. Like, if you have a nice car and can afford a car in middle class China, you want your car wrapped. 2 master techs, they have apprentices. They're constantly bringing in apprentices. They're constantly growing. It's amazing to see. So your role here at this company is what?
Really to drive global revenue.
Yeah.
And, if you look at even from a public or private company standpoint, you got to go out there and either organically earn it or possibly inorganically acquire it.
I see a lot of potential overseas. I've traveled quite a bit.
Absolutely.
It's really cool to see how overseas is where the U.S. was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And where they're going to go. Are you having fun?
Absolutely.
Are you?
Yeah, this is honestly the most, I said this on multiple podcasts now, this is the most fun I've actually had in the industry. What I like most about this job is I come in here every day and I learn something new.
Yeah.
And I learn stuff from all sorts of people every single day. But on the dealership side, I'm calling some of my friends and it's like, hey, I'm at XPEL. And they're like, well, what's that? And by the way, like this person saying, what's that, owns 55 dealerships, right? And you're like, how do you not know what this is? And by the way, like when I got here, I guess 15 months ago, when I reached out to Ryan and introduced to Matt, you worked in dealerships. When someone actually tells me something self-healing, I'm thinking it's F&I department snake oil. Mm-hmm. And of course, like, no, they were like, yeah, this actually works. And I, started looking all this up, and my chemistry background, I was like, holy cow, this is very, very valuable stuff. And this is why people are putting this on. And I started asking my friends from the car business, but by the way, they were also automotive enthusiasts. And so you remember this from the dealerships. You have like 2 schools of thought there. If you sold cars, wrote service, any of that stuff. There's some guys who actually walk out of the dealership and they get in a really nice car that probably went to the XPEL shop. And then there's others of us that like look at cars like they're just a gross profit.
I drove a company van, an Astro van, for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I would literally park it in front of nightclubs, valet park it, give the guy $50, park it up front. Nice. So everybody walking into a nightclub saw my van lettered up. Nice restaurant, valet park, $50.
That's nice.
Park me up next to the McLaren.
That's awesome.
The guy that drove the McLaren didn't tip. I did.
Yeah.
My van was parked front. The McLaren was second. It was marketing because the people that could identify my brand were walking in and out of those stores. Were walking in and out of those nightclubs. Were walking in and out of the nice restaurants. I didn't have a marketing budget. I didn't have a ton of money. But that $50 to valet, to put my name on my product right next to the people that could afford it, that's where I put it.
And you remember when everybody went from a BlackBerry to Trios to, then all of a sudden you're carrying really a smart device. And like what really hit home for me and like the I'll call it the passive marketing or the viral marketing that you're describing, the grassroots type stuff. One year I had a really good year, and I can't remember even what year it was, but it was around the time probably the iPhone came out. And I went out and bought these steel cell phone stands that basically said, think cars, think Tony, and it had my cell phone and it had redmccombs.com. Well, I'll call people even still today.
And they still have it.
And they still have this stupid cell phone stand where they literally put their cell phone on this thing. And it doesn't even have a charger. Like, you have the ones now where you integrate the charger and everything else. But it's literally just been sitting there on their desk. And you think about like your van analogy or the analogous to your story. Like, I don't think we do think about that enough anymore.
We don't.
A lot of times we're thinking about how much cost per click we can get,
I'm getting back to some of my old grassroots things now, and I'm in a network of independent dealers that are constantly calling me for advice, calling me for coaching, calling me for things. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'll tell you some secrets that still work today that are amazing for getting clients and getting business. And when I tell some of these ideas, it blows their mind. I said, guys, I started tinting windows when there was only the yellow pages.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I had.
Mm-hmm.
Like all I had. And if you didn't pay $80 or to $300 to be whatever and name your business A whatever,
mm-hmm.
you weren't listed in the front.
The AAA bonds.
You're on the third page
yeah.
of your business. And that was the marketing strategy, is how many times you could change your name every year mm-hmm. and add an A.
Oh, yeah.
This business has just changed. It went from an image, because when I first started tinting windows, everybody thought that tinted windows were drug dealers, or like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was very nice for your time. This podcast is mainly for the dealer network groups, and we want to put a face to a name to a position. Mm-hmm. So we have a team of people, mm-hmm. and I think what XPEL does better than anyone else is create that team atmosphere. But thank you so much, Tony, for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
See you, bud.